Hello everyone, in this video I'll show you how to make our NQ test setup profitable. We provide our NQ test setup to everyone who is testing our bot. It's intended for practicing and for checking whether you can actually manage to make this setup profitable on your own. However, since many people are having difficulties with it, which I can understand to a certain extent, we thought we would make a video in which we show you step by step how the entire thing works. In principle, I always have to decide when exactly I want to use this setup. That means whether I want to use it during the EU session or during the US session. I have decided to use the US session for this setup, and to make everything a bit clearer and more straightforward overall, I will simply go to the trading session section here and select the regular trading hours. After I have done that, I get a slightly better overall overview right here. That means I can now clearly see only the US sessions, and we have loaded 20 complete days into the chart here. This is the US chart. I really like using these charts because I always know exactly how large a trend candle is and how large a reversal candle is. Here it's always specifically about the candle body, meaning the wick can of course vary, but in this case the candle body of a reversal candle is 100 ticks, which of course helps me build truly sensible setups with it. First, of course, we need to load the strategy, or more precisely, our trading setup. I'm going to switch specifically to the test version right here, which is the one that's provided to all testers. I'm going to scroll down here to the setup manager, then head into the test group, and I'll go ahead and load the setup first. So, taking a look at this setup, that means we already have a specific location defined where the bot can search for trades. However, these setups are still not optimized. That means this is now my responsibility, really every tester's responsibility, to work closely with the bot and see how I can achieve a profitable setup here. First, of course, I can run the backtest right here. I display the trades here, and of course I need to download the tick data. I have to do that the first time, and as long as I don't change anything on the chart, the tick data will still be there. In our new version, in the full version, all of this is a bit different, meaning they will then be saved on your computer, so you'll have faster access to them, and then it will only download the missing packages. Now we can see the result right here. The setup is already profitable, which means we made a total profit of $2,684 here over 20 days. There were 98 trades in total, 53 winners, 45 losses, and 0 break-even trades. We have a win rate of 54% and a risk-reward ratio of 0.59. The equity curve looks anything but good, and of course we want to improve it. The easiest thing to do is to start by looking at the losing trades first. That means we can see that we have 45 losses here, and if we start working on those losing trades now, we naturally have the opportunity to pull a bit more potential out of the setup. Here I can already see that the market is coming down quite steeply. Here we are getting bought up, and here the buyers are trying to push it higher again. We also have a strong delta. Nevertheless, the market still moves downward. We can take a look at the time here. So 3:35 p.m. Okay, that is shortly after the open. There was some pressure on the market and we were pushed down here. Okay, let's switch over to a profitable trade here. Here we have a profitable trade for $500. Okay, and here as well I can see the time is 4 p.m. and then we will take a closer look at the whole thing. For example, I can see a setup here where the delta really fits, the volume also fits, it actually looks pretty good overall, and we end up getting taken out by just a few ticks, and then the market moves back in our direction. So we should definitely keep that in mind and possibly raise the stop a little bit. What else do we have here? Here he is also trying to trade back up again. It is 4:45 p.m. Delta is okay, and we would need to take a look at the volume at 4,000 to see whether that is good or whether it is simply too much. At first glance, the volume as well as the delta values look good here too, even though it is a negative now, and we will need to take another look at that in a moment. I will just set the overview aside again, which means this is our starting point, and we will simply see how we come out after the optimization. When I look at this and go directly to the time, I can see here that a trade was entered fairly late, let's say at around 9:50 p.m. And here it didn't actually close out the trade. I have several options to limit that. For example, I can tell it to close all trades no later than say 9 miles p.m. or 10 miles p.m. I can do that right here by using the time management settings. I can tell it, okay, for example, to close out all trades at 9:55 p.m. That means I'll go ahead and run the back test again now, and then I can see that I immediately get an improved result, and the trade is closed right here directly after it was opened. Another option would of course be to say that we only let the bot trade up to a certain time. That means I could of course say here now, you may place trades only until 8 p.m. at the latest, and after that no more. I'll obviously need to try a few more things out there as well. So if I set it up like this, I automatically end up at $4,500, $400. That means I've basically already doubled the result that I had right at the very beginning. Let's take another look at the result from earlier. We were at 2,600 here, and now we're already at 4,018. We honestly haven't adjusted all that much yet, so what exactly should we look at next? We can just jump into the chart here and see whether we can spot anything unusual at all anywhere. As we can see right here, we were up somewhere around that higher area. The market is coming down here and it's currently in a downward move. And here I also like to use a few other time frames as a helpful guide. Yes, that means for now we've already marked out the highs and the lows for the hour, and I'm going to hide the entire thing right here. So that means I won't have it displayed on the chart anymore, at least for now. For the moment, I'm also taking the VWAP out. The function is still available, but I'm simply hiding it. And for now, I'm also removing the SSL filter as well. So that means I now have a slightly nicer and more clearly visible overview. What I would like to do now is maybe take a closer look at the 15-minute chart right here. So these are the 15-minute ones now. I'll make them a slightly different color. That means we now have one location nested inside another location. After I've done that, I'll adjust the color here just a little bit so we can distinguish them more clearly later on, and I'll make it really bright, kind of a purple. Same here. Okay. And now I can already see it much more clearly. So right here, for example, is a really nice setup. And over here, I don't have quite as nice of a setup. Yes, I'll need to see whether I can filter these specific setups out with that, but I can already tell right now that I only want to go long if you're up at the high of a 15-minute candle. That means I'm going back into my high and low filter here, switching it over to minutes and then setting a specific restriction for it. In other words, I want it to take trades right at the high. First, I need to activate the entire thing and I'll set it to 50 ticks up to the high. I'll run the backtest once again here and I end up at $6,000 here and $1,695 here. Okay, I still have a curve here that I don't really like that much, but we've increased the win rate quite significantly. We're now 3 times higher than before in terms of results, and we've reduced our drawdown. Next, we'll take another look around here and see whether we can find anything else that we wouldn't like to have. We have another trade here that would not have worked out, and we can take a closer look at it right here. Yes, and as we can clearly see here, we have a delta of 56, which I personally consider relatively low, especially for this particular market. Of course, we could take a slightly closer look at that right here as well. That means I'll simply go into the trading signals, then into the individual filters, and tell it that the delta should be at least 60. So at this point, what happens is that the result still does not really get any better here. I also have another option where I can say, okay, let's try to increase the delta even further, meaning it could potentially improve a bit. We could, for example, set it to 100 and take a look at it, but it still did not get any better. That means we will reduce the delta values again, and I will remove the delta completely. Let me quickly check whether that actually improves things. No, it is not really getting any better. That means the result stays exactly the same, okay? However, I will still set it to 1 for the time being. I want to remove all of the other values in here. The volume can actually remain in place because it truly does not matter. So in the end, nothing really changes here, okay? That works pretty well for me. And now let's take a closer look at where we might still have any losing trades left. That is a pretty good trade. It definitely works out here. Here I have one trade that works out, or at least could still work out. That means I would need to take a slightly closer look here. We have already moved forward by about 90 ticks here, and then it ends up getting stopped out. Here we have a nice setup now. This is a nice setup, or rather, we actually have two nice setups here. I just need to take a quick look at the settings here. And here I have the option to specify what it should do when an opposing signal comes in. That means that right now it has simply ignored it. If I include it here, the result gets worse. Okay, that means we'll need to take another closer look at that in just a moment to see whether it really makes sense or not. What are we seeing here? At this point it gets stopped out, which is really not so nice. Here as well, of course, I can go into the order flow values and take a closer look at what happened here. Delta of 85, here I have a nice trade and here I have a relatively good one. For instance, what I'm looking at here is right after the market open, and the market may not have completely found its footing yet. Of course, I also have the option here, and I do this with quite a few of my setups, to say that we'll simply leave out the first minute, or possibly even the first 5 minutes. That means first we'll look at the very first minute, let the whole thing run its course, and it gets a little bit better. Second, we'll take a look at the very first 5 minutes, and that actually turns out even better. That means we'll simply leave out the first 5 minutes completely. So what do we see here? Here as well, yes, we have an ER delta here, and ER delta is really extremely low. I would probably also work on that as well. And what I, of course, can see here is that, especially down around the lows, I actually do not want to go short at all. That means here as well, I of course still have the option to use the high and low filter and set it up in such a way that I do not want it to go short anywhere near the low. That means I set a minimum distance from the low here, and I also specify 50 ticks here, and then of course I'll first take a closer look at where the whole thing is headed. Now I need to understand just one thing. Of course, I'm getting a slightly worse overall result now, but my drawdown is clearly going down and my win rate is steadily going up. That means I naturally need to think through what makes the most sense for me personally here. Would I prefer to make more profit with a larger drawdown, or would I rather have trades that are somewhat safer, I'd say? That means the number of trades has, of course, dropped to 27 now, 44 total, 27 winners. But I also now only have 17 losses, and it's always a bit of a balancing act that I naturally need to think through. What I can very clearly see up here is that we get stopped out briefly and then the market actually moves in our direction. That's exactly what we already pointed out earlier, that we can basically say, let's just try raising the stop a little bit. And now I'm saying we'll use a minimum stop of, say, 120 ticks, and that brings me back to 6.9. The drawdown is at 1200. Okay, now we'll do another cross check, meaning we'll raise the stop a bit further from 6.9. And now I'm even getting to, meaning if I give the market even more room, then of course I have noticeably more setups that ultimately work out. Now I can see that as we go higher, it actually tends to get worse. That could have two different reasons though. If I increase my stop and I'm working with a risk reward ratio of 1, then it can also happen that I automatically no longer end up reaching my TP. Okay, we're sitting at a hit rate of 72%. So what can we realistically do here right now? I want to try one specific thing here. I'd like to increase the TP up to 2. Okay, that actually makes it worse, so we should basically roll that back again. Okay, now we're still sitting at roughly a 2000 drawdown, which I personally don't really like at all. Let's run the cross check again at 180. It gets even worse there, and at 120 as well, even though the drawdown is still relatively small, which I personally might actually prefer. We have 18 trades here, 16 losses. Okay. Even so, we already have a pretty solid, profitable setup without really having to tweak the order flow values too much. Now let's take a closer look at these two trades. We scroll down and now I can see we have a delta of over 500. Yes, a delta of 500 is definitely quite high, and we can clearly see the market is moving downward here. Here we have 332 and the market is also moving downward. So the logical approach would be to say, first of all, we should basically throw this out. That means we go into our delta settings, into the separate filters. I want to try one thing because earlier we had a trade with an ER delta that wasn't very nice. So let's see whether we can filter that out. So we increase this here as well, but we also tell it that we'll test our way through it first. That means if your delta is over 300, we no longer want to take those trades. Now let's look. The result has gotten a bit worse here, which means a few good trades are getting filtered out as well. So we cap the whole thing here at 500 and see that the result improves again. We can also drop it to 450, meaning we give the market a bit of room, but the result gets worse there too. So here I would actually go to a maximum of 500. Okay. And if we look at this now, the curve here, of course, looks significantly better than what we had at the beginning. Good. Next, we'll go further into the trades. For example, I see 2 losing trades in a row. You can, of course, look at those and see what happened. The delta works for me here. We're at 47, so you could, of course, take another look at whether to raise the delta a little, since we made several settings. And what do we have here? Here it gets taken out again by Partix. There too you could of course check whether to raise the SL a bit, because as I said, we also made several delta related settings, and that means things may have changed a bit. So I'll test again here as well. We'll go to 150 again, and now I can see I'm already getting to. I've got that one in place now too. Okay, that actually fits perfectly fine. Okay, I still have one trade sitting here. Now, of course, I could think about increasing this a little bit more in my high and low filter and maybe set it to around 80 ticks just to see whether that would already be enough. It's still not enough, which means I might have to enter 100 ticks here instead. The problem is that I'd probably end up filtering out a few good trades as well. And that's always the trade-off, right? That means I have to accept some losing trades. So I'm setting it back to 50 again, and that's it. Okay, now, of course, I can go back in here again and maybe specify just one more thing, like 125. We can take another quick look at that right here. That means I'm going back into the high and low filter now and telling it that. At the day's low, it has to have at least 150 ticks of room available so it can then go short. So that means I've excluded this right here for now. But what I'm noticing is that my drawdown has increased a bit. The question is when exactly it went up. Probably when I raised the stop just a little bit. Of course, I can do a cross check here again. So yes, that means it naturally went up to 2.5 right here. Okay, that means it goes back down again with this. Of course, I could also check once more whether doing the whole thing at the high, the day's high, actually improves the result further. Yes, this gets better here as well. Great, so we're now at a total of 37 trades, 30 winners and 7 losses. That means over 20 days, that's, I'd say, almost 2 trades per day on average. Of those, the 30 trades have a win rate of 81% with an RR of 0.84. Here as well, we could of course take a look and see if we can get a bit more out of it. Yes, but basically if we take a slightly closer look at this right here, this is the initial setup. And we can do it right here with just a few clicks, provided of course that you know exactly what you need to set and you learn that gradually and step by step over time. That means that over time you also keep getting better and the setups keep getting better as well. And in the full version you have even more options to create even better setups. And this is just a single setup. And of course anyone can say a 1750 drawdown is simply too much for me. And that is not a problem at all. With Attis's new chart trader feature, you can, for example, set the commission to 1, set the whole thing to 0.5, and have the bot trade in the micros. I'm sitting at almost $2,500 or maybe $2,600 per contract here. And for example, I can say that I'll let the whole thing trade using 3 contracts, and then I'll also be making dollars with a maximum drawdown of $525, and I won't have any headaches at all. And that is always very important to understand. Many people want to enter the market with 5 contracts right on the first day, right in the first week, but they do not have an account that can support that. That means if you end up with even just 1 or 2 losing trades using minis, your account is basically gone. You have to clearly understand that, which is exactly why everyone needs to use good judgment and then decide for themselves how many trades they're actually allowed to make there. Now, of course, the trades have gone up to 1111, which means it's calculated on a per contract basis. Here I could of course go up to 5, but everything has to properly fit my account size, and I can of course link as many accounts behind it as I would like to. That means I don't have to do this with only one account. I can do it with 20 accounts or 30, or if you prefer with just 5, and already earn significantly more than most people with just a single setup. I really hope you were able to take something valuable away from this video. If you'd like to test the bot for yourself, please feel free to join our Discord channel and send me a message. You can find the link on our website, otherwise I'll include it once again here in the video. And yes, aside from that, as always, I wish you good trades, plenty of success, and I'll see you again next time.